Awesome, Nishit. So glad to have you on the Inside Scoop today.
I am doing fantastically well. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, excited to have you on and excited to have you hear more about your own journey and your journey to found Sybill too.
Yeah, I'm excited to share that as well.
Awesome. So can you start off just with what Sybill is? For those of us, some people listening will know a lot about the space. Some people listening, it might be well, I'm sure most people listening have heard of the space, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you specifically do differently from some of your other competitors.
Of course, I have a chair next to me and I have my personal sales assistant sitting there. That's Sybil. I'm kidding. I don't have anyone sitting there, but that's the whole idea behind Sybil. It's an AI sales assistant. It basically is reading your emails, it's seeing your calls, it's figuring out how you respond to certain situations, and based on that, it's helping you execute on your deals. That's basically what Sybil does. Before the call, we create a pre-call brief that helps you prepare for the call as a salesperson. During the call, we take notes. After the call, we write a follow-up email in your tone of voice based on your past emails. And then we also update your CRM, any and all fields, and you have complete control over how you want it updated. So essentially, we take care of a 360 of everything you need to do around customer conversations, apart from taking the conversation itself.
What led you to found Sybill?
So prior to starting Sybill, I was at Stanford doing my graduate studies. That's where I met Gorish, who's my co-founder, and at that time, a friend and roommate. We were trying to build a video platform, and pretty quickly realized as COVID hit and as everyone started taking video calls, we realized that there's a lot of data that's now flowing through video, and a lot of people are now participating in video calls, especially in sales and customer-facing roles. People are participating with their cameras on and having those conversations. So a lot of data that earlier could not have been recorded is now being recorded, which is your facial expressions, body language, how you speak, what you speak, how you nod or smile or whatever. And so we figured that it might be a good idea to kind of try to find some sense in this data and be able to help the person leading the conversation with better insights into how their audience is reacting. Pretty quickly found out that this was an important problem to solve, but not the only problem to solve in sales. There's the plethora of problems in sales was much, much more bigger than this. So we started off building out a computer vision platform that could give you insights into how your prospects were thinking and reacting when were they disengaged or distracted or excited or and so on, even if they didn't say anything based on your nonverbal reactions. Pretty quickly, we started building a call summarization engine that built on top of these insights along with the transcript and started summarizing the entire call that, hey, you tried to sell to Janet. This is what Janet was most excited by. These were her biggest pain points. And then this is potentially her buying intent. So that's what we would give. And then soon enough, once GPT 3.5 launched and shortly thereafter ChatGPT launched, we realized that we could make these summaries way more accurate and way more precise. And so we took all the signals we were collecting, fed it through ChatGPT at the last part of the funnel, and got a really accurate summary out of it. So that's kind of like how we entered into this realm of, okay, now we have all the backend we need for creating a truly generative AI assistant product. And now we also have the LLMs to make it possible. And then since then, we've iterated on a lot of different things, but that's sort of the gist of how we got into this.
That's super interesting. When you were thinking about what data to collect, how did you think through what's most important and what's not? Or did you just say, let's collect a ton of this and then figure out what becomes the most important?
We were always quite intentional about what we wanted to collect. So at the time when we started in 2020, there obviously were a few call recorders in the market, including ones you're familiar with, Gong, Chorus, and so on. And everybody recorded, and each one of those tools recorded calls in a speaker view. So you'd only see the person who's speaking at any given point of time. But we saw that if we really wanted to get deep insights into a person's behavior, we really needed to record in gallery view because we needed to have everyone's video, not just the speaker's video. So that was like one instance of like how our product needs kind of translated into our data needs. And we decided, okay, we'll record everything in gallery view. We'll be able to figure out each person's individual video stream and then process data off of that. Similarly, when we are looking at, like today, we do deal level summarization. So we're very intentional that if we only take, like Sybil only records, like Sybil only authentically takes data from calls. But if we only took data from calls, that's not enough information to make a deal or opportunity level prediction or judgment. So we decided, okay, we will take email data from your CRM as well. So then we have multimodal data sources. So CRM, email, and calls. And then the AI will be able to make much better judgments on how the deal is going and what you can do to revive it and whether you're talking to the right people people or not, and so on. So it's been very much intentional based on like the product vision. We figure out what data we need to collect, how we need to process it, how we need to make sure it's secure and preserves privacy, and then essentially what kind of insights we get from it.
Walk me through what somebody then does with this data. So they've got a bunch of data points. Do they pull it into their CRM and then report then on it and say, we've got 16 different touch points in one deal, we've got 2 in this other deal. Some deals, for those on the phone who are less familiar with sales, some deals you have to be very multi-threaded, others you just close in a day. That kind of the process by which one reports on the data, or is there data that you get straight out of Sybill and people might be having their weekly sales meetings out of your product?
Absolutely. It's more of the latter. So we don't just collect activity level data or the kind of data you get by default in a CRM, like how many touch points you've had or how many deals have you closed or what's the deal amount. That's like the baseline, and that's what CRMs are good for. We go a step beyond that and we actually take action based on the data and provide you actionable insights based on the data. So as an example, let's say you're a sales organization who follows this process called MEDDIC, right?
You just say what MEDDIC stands for?
Yeah. So it's basically a way to qualify your deal and figure out how strong it is. So MEDDIC is metrics, economic buyer, decision process, decision criteria, identify the pain, champion competitors. And so we can identify all of those fields from your deals if that's what's important to you, and also keep it updated over time. So let's say in the first call you have with a prospect, and we sell to salespeople. So I'll take an example of that. Let's say I'm talking to a salesperson, an account executive, and they tell me that, hey, my biggest pain point is that I'm spending like 4 hours every day just in operational work. I'm filling out my CRM, writing follow-ups, etc. Okay, cool. Sybill will record that hey, in this company, the main pain is 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 major pain points. Now, let's say in the next call, I go talk to the VP of sales. And also in the first call, let's say I asked the account executive, do you know what the budget is like? And they said, I don't really know, but it might be likely $10,000 to $20,000. Sybill will also record that this person thinks that the budget is $10,000 to $20,000. Now, in the next call, let's say I meet the VP of sales. I know he's going to be my economic buyer. The account executive was my champion. I talked to the VP of sales. I asked them the same questions. And then let's say they say that, hey, our budget is actually around $30,000 for the right kind of tool. Then Sybil will be smart enough to collate those pieces of information and any other information we have, and then be able to have a precise answer for the budget. AE said it's between 10 to 20K. The VP of sales said it's about 30K. And VP of sales is typically the buyer. So likely what this person is saying is closer to the right amount. And likely the pain points that the AE is saying is closer to the right pain points because they are the end user. And that's where Sybil really differentiates from a lot of your typical open LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude, because it has a lot more sales specific nuance baked into it because of our own proprietary RAG systems and fine tuning.
That makes sense. And you had some really interesting news over the summer. You raised your Series A. What types of questions did you get and what types of metrics were VCs asking for? Because I imagine some of our listeners will be probably looking to raise their Series A this year. And I'd be curious for what advice you'd give to them and what your own experience was like.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. I think the typical metrics are obviously important, like your ARR, number of customers, customer growth rate, ARR growth rate, retention, churn numbers, and so on. Obviously, a Series A there's one part of what constitutes like your strength as a company when you go out in the market to raise from investors. The other part is the story itself. And in AI, especially, both of those things are important because a lot of companies, big and small, are looking to deploy AI across their company in different areas. We're seeing that VCs told us, and they keep telling us that it's only accelerated. The ARR numbers, the revenue numbers are in general pretty good for a lot of AI companies, and they're rising quickly. But a lot of this ARR may or may not be durable because right now a lot of companies are experimenting with AI. They don't know if they want to kind of continue using the same AI tools next year or the year after that. So you need to be careful about that. Obviously, the biggest way to hedge against that uncertainty is to have an amazing product that your customers really love. So when a VC goes ahead and calls one of your top customers and asks them, hey, do you use this product? How do you use them? Would you replace them with XYZ? How bad would you feel if you could never use it again? They are profusely in love with your product and are able to kind of explain that to the VC. And I think that's always been key and remains even more so, that you need to have customers who absolutely love your product, cannot live without it, and want to tell anyone and everyone who is willing to listen to them that, hey, this is how awesome it is. So that worked very well in our favor. We had a few customers who absolutely loved us. In fact, have referred a lot of people and so on. We were like, hey, here's our customer list. Go talk to anybody and everyone you like. We were pretty confident that we will get good responses from our customers, and that helped.
That's always huge. And how is it different? I mean, now that you've really transitioned, so you've got the cash in the bank, that's all exciting. What do you think through for B? I imagine similar metrics, but are there any things where you're starting to say, oh, we want to cut the data this way, or we might have this twist on the metric, starting to look more clearly into churn or upsells? I'm curious what has been your experience with that.
So that's a very interesting question. I think, as you already alluded to, there are lots of people building a lots of AI products, and a lot of the spaces like sales tech, martech, and so on are starting to get very, very crowded.
Crowded?
Yeah, depending on what you define as crowded, whether it's three competitors or 30 or 300 depends. But a big part of what VCs are looking for, and also I think a big part for us as to build a durable company, is being able to put a finger on the pulse of the market and be able to say, hey, this is how we are differentiated. This is why, and these are the proof points for it. And so that's kind of like how we look at it. So apart from just, okay, yeah, obviously we need to increase revenue, we need to increase margins and so on, but we also need to be able to show that what we're building is uniquely resonating with our customers. And the best way to show it is through customer love. The best way to show it is through extremely high engagement rates, high referral rates, high virality coefficients, and so on. So that's kind of what we're focusing on, especially since Sybill particularly helps the account executive do their job better. And we've seen that the folks who have an amazing experience with Sybill tend to refer a lot. And referrals has been our biggest channel for since forever in terms of getting new customers and building a pipeline. So that's our key focus. Make the product so good and make it so easy for people to use and easy for people to refer other people that it builds a momentum of its own. And that is something that nobody, no outsider, whether it be a VC advisor, whoever it is, can really ignore. That, okay, there is an organic movement here that this product and this company is able to generate.
That's really interesting, especially when you talk about just the virality, because I think we grew up in the virality generation back when, for those of you on the phone, YouTube used to be a big viral thing, and videos would go viral. Now it's TikTok's going viral. Then end of 2025, I don't know, maybe it'll be Reels going viral.
Yeah, I will see how things go, and I think there's a like virality is a very loaded term, and it's so that's why I kind of like prefer to think about it in terms of referral rates, in terms of are we satisfying our users enough that they really want to talk about it to other folks, and can we give them a delightful experience? So that's basically what our whole focus is. And I think this is also a time where categories are getting redefined. What used to be conversation intelligence is now something else. What used to be revenue intelligence is morphing into something else. There's new categories emerging like AI sales assistants, AI copilots, AI agents for sales, etc. Nobody really knows how this is going to all land up, what's going to stick to each other, what's going to separate from each other, what's going to happen, nobody knows. And so it's up to us and the other companies in the space to kind of define our own trajectory, our own journey, our own user base, and how we are going to provide unique and interesting value to them. Yeah, I think that's going to be big in our next round and subsequent rounds as to like how we're able to tell that story with proof points of how our customers are using and referring us.
How internally do you see things like AI changing your own business?
Oh, it's a giant shift, and I only see it accelerating, at least in the short to medium term. So I think we started seeing the impact first, obviously, with our own product, using our own product day in, day out. The first time we started using call summaries and follow-up emails internally, even though we're not a big sales team or anything, we saw a big change in terms of how quickly are people or our own sales team, including myself, how quickly are we sending follow-ups to our customers after a call? How detailed is our understanding of every deal, even deals we're not part of, and things like that. Then we started seeing, so that was across the GTM function. Soon enough, we started seeing a lot more on the marketing side as well. Obviously, as soon as GPT-4 came out, everybody started creating content with GPT-4 and trying to see how far it could go. We did a lot of our own experiments as well and figured out our own sweet spots of like, what can we use AI for creating content, or what kind of content can we use AI for? How can we use it best for brainstorming? How can we use it best for creating initial drafts or whatever that looks like? And then more recently, this year, we've seen a tremendous upleveling of our engineering function and product management function as well, with a bunch of AI tools that help with coding. So Cursor, Replit agents, for example, these tools have really sped up our product development process. At this point, it's like probably 4 to 5x quicker than what it was before. And that's a huge boost, right? You need fewer people operating at a much higher kind of level of abstraction to really build the product. And that's been a huge, huge lever for us.
It's one of the things that I get to see a lot of, especially in Silicon Valley, is just all of the different ways that AI is changing different functions, whether it's content creation, AI engineering. And I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on where this is going to go in 2025?
Yeah, I think over time as end users, we are all getting better at figuring out what are the tasks that AI is uniquely good at and what are the tasks it's not good at, and being able to kind of strategize and prioritize accordingly. So I've learned a lot more of like, okay, I kind of need to do the original thinking. The AI is not going to do it for me, but it can be an extremely good helping hand for retrospective. So figuring out, hey, if we had like a, let's say we had a great quarter, let's run all the numbers by Claude and let's see what it has to say. Why did we have a great quarter? What did we do right? If we had a bad quarter, what went wrong? All of us in our own professions, in our own domains, we learn better as to what's working, what's not, and where to use AI. Where does it fit into our own workflows of executing certain things? The other trend that's going to accelerate a lot is the UX around AI is going to get way more sophisticated. We started off with just a chat interface that ChatGPT introduced, and then others kind of followed suit. Now we are seeing a lot of interesting UX coming into the market. I don't know if you've recently tried out ChatGPT Canvas, but I tried it out and I was kind of blown away that you can collaborate with AI on the same document or the same kind of IDE for coding. There's domain specific UX that's helping certain folks. Like we at Sybill, we kind of become a bridge between CRM and AI and your calls. And it's a UX that is kind of very uniquely crafted for a salesperson's day-to-day life, such that they don't have to go to do certain things. AI comes to them, and it's so seamlessly embedded in as part of what they do every day anyway, that they don't even feel it that they're interacting with AI. They're just using a tool to accomplish a certain task, which is how it should be. So I think that's going to accelerate a lot. We're going to see a lot more in place user experience that's going to help knowledge workers get their tasks done quicker, better, and so on.
It's almost like AI is becoming more, or was about to say AI is becoming more normalized, but what I should really say is the advanced stage of AI is becoming more normalized. For decades, we've all been using very simple AI, such as spell check and next word search and whatnot. The type of AI that we'll become accustomed to in the 2020s as opposed to the mid 2010s is more of this. I've got the chat summary already up. I've got my call notes already summarized, and we'll just automatically expect that. Any predictions if say the mid 2010s were simple spell check and such, the mid 2020s are here's the automated call summary. What'll the mid 2030s be?
Oh, I think folks like Ilya Sutskever may be able to better tell. I think the trend that is probably going to continue is that first we had the first set of generative AI tools that we had were basically just tools. Now we're starting to see more agentic behavior where you have agents that are able to solve a task end to end while taking a lot of miniature steps in between and planning for those steps and doing that. So that allows us to be able to claim that, hey, now you have the power of, let's say, a data analyst intern at your fingertips, or you have the power of a programming intern at your fingertips, or you have a power of a content writing intern at your fingertips. But it's still an intern, or it's still like an assistant, because you are the smart person, you are the one who's doing all the original thinking, they're helping you execute. What we're seeing with some of the new models, especially with Owen Pro, is that people are starting, like these models are starting to get into the space where it's not just like an assistant, it's probably like your peer, or even like an extremely knowledgeable person in your field who you can take help from. And then it kind of shifts the focus a little bit where the AI is kind of also doing the thinking, the planning, and the strategizing. And then you and the AI are collaborating on a lot of that stuff. Probably that will accelerate, and probably we'll get into an economy where the AIs are running our companies.
I was about to say the AI was your direct report / analyst, then your peer, next your manager. Because there will always be things AI can't do and humans can only do. There will always be things that are still difficult for humans to do. Level precisions, or I don't have all of Google stored in my brain yet.
Exactly.
With Neuralink, we might see some changes to that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's at the crux of like as we think about the future, like what jobs will still be relevant and what jobs will get transformed because of AI. Like one of the things that we think about a lot is like, especially in sales, right? There's a lot of work that is kind of operational, mundane that an AI can do and should be able to do that salespeople anyway don't like doing. And then there's stuff that only humans can do. Like if you're going to buy a complex or expensive piece of software, if you are going to buy from a human, you're likely not going to buy from an AI, unless the buyer becomes AI, which I think we're still a few years away from that, but at least a few years away. But humans like to buy from humans, and there's something there that's about the human connection that makes the whole thing happen. Whereas CRM entries is something that a human doesn't necessarily need to do. It's a data crunching exercise and it's a visibility exercise that a machine should be able to do. So there's like in every profession, I think it's going to be transformed a little bit or a lot depending on like what's core to what they do. And we're already seeing some of that happen with sales, with marketing, with software engineering, and with a bunch of other professions. So I think that's what that trend is going to kind of shift certain folks towards being more human focused. It's going to shift certain folks, especially like programmers, to be more thinking more on the abstract level rather than in the mundanities of adding a semicolon or not and fixing those kinds of bugs. They'll likely be thinking at a more higher level of system design, engineering, architecture, and the AI will help them write the code and so on. Yeah.
The one thing that I think of too, this is more on the B2C side than B2B side, but something that somebody recently told me is millennials tend when we make big purchases to go to our computers. So if it's say an expensive plane flight or a car, it's like, I'm gonna go to my computer. Whereas Gen Z is much more likely to do that on their cell phone. And there's something about how we've been trained where, okay, expensive purchase equal computer. I want a larger screen. I want to see all the details. Whereas Gen Z, which is more phone digitally native, perfectly fine doing that on a phone. And I wonder if some of that will be similar for as the different generations get more accustomed to AI, whereas they'll just, some people will still try to write their essays on their own, where some people are like, why would I even start?
Yeah, we're definitely going to see that. I think it's important to kind of think about like what's core to like what's a core skill set versus what is something you can and should delegate to an AI, especially like around writing an essay, for instance, right? It's kind of an interesting thing because yes, AI makes writing easier, but what's the core of writing? The core of writing is not necessarily the act of writing itself. The writing is pretty amazing because while you're writing it, it refines your own thought process. And so essentially, you don't want the machine to think on your behalf. You probably want to preserve your critical thinking skills and probably expand them, but you do want the machine to help you present them in a presentable fashion or whatever that looks like. So I think that's some of the core human skills like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, being analytical, being resourceful. These things will continue to be of high value, but the way they are expressed in the world might get assisted by AI a lot, is probably how I think about it.
You see any just kind of that catch 22 where you're an AI sales company and the better you do and the better the AI become, the less salespeople will end up needing?
I actually don't think so. Sales is a revenue generating function, and if each of your salesperson is more effective, you'll probably want to hire more of them. And that's what we see in our customers as well. Essentially, what ends up happening is each of your salesperson can better manage their time because now it's like so far there's like tons of reports from Salesforce and other sources that salespeople spend like 2 to 3 hours out of their 9 hour workday actually talking to customers or doing related things to customers. They spend the rest of the day either in internal communication or doing some ops work, recording things in the CRM or writing emails and whatnot. So our whole thing is like, hey, what if instead of spending 3 hours, you could spend 6 or 7 hours every day just talking to customers, moving deals forward, building relationships? And so if you had a salesperson that was that effective, they'll probably hit 2x of their current quota. And if you have salespeople hitting 2x of their current quota, what are you going to do? You're going to hire more salespeople because it first of all proves that your product can be sold, and secondly proves that your salespeople are actually at the peak of their productivity. So that's kind of like essentially how we think about it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that because you're also building an AI company and not too far off from sales yourself. Yeah.
My thoughts tend to be at the starting level around the AI SDR. My take is the SDR is just going to become more of a marketing person than a salesperson.
Mhm.
And I mean that in the best possible way. They'll be managing so many of these agents, and they'll be able to apply real critical thinking skills of which, which of these matches are performing best, which types of industries should I go after. I see it as much more critical type of thinking, with AI being able to help learn around patterns, but ultimately you do need that human touch at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it kind of draws back to a parallel with software engineering that we're seeing, right? Like it's like you're a entry-level software engineer, but suddenly now AI elevates you to a higher level engineer where you are more involved in the design decisions rather than writing all of the code yourself. As similar as what you're seeing with SDRs as well. Like you're more involved in the higher level decision making of what industries, what messaging, what angle am I taking, rather than in the nitty-gritties of like, okay, I'm going to handwrite these 50 emails in this 4 hour window.
Nishit, I know we're almost at time today. Is there any other takes that you have for coming up as we're starting out 2025?
I'm really excited for what is to come. I feel very fortunate to be in the AI space in such a long time. Like I did my undergrad and my graduate studies in AI machine learning, and then now I'm building an AI company. I feel pretty fortunate. The space is moving so quickly, and we're seeing uh, things evolve not just in our company, but in for other companies and other industries, and how that's really elevating the kind of work that people are doing and how it's making work so much more fulfilling for folks. I do really hope that this trend continues and we're able to kind of leverage AI to in its best possible fashion heading into 2025. That's kind of like high level what I hope for. And for the listeners, we have some really, really exciting things coming in for Sybill in 2025 in the whole theme of being an AI co-pilot or AI assistant for sales. So please keep an eye out and check us out. We are very much end user friendly. Try using the product. It's going to delight you, hopefully.
Well, on that note, I'm excited to see what Sybil does for 2025.
I'm excited to see that as well. And thank you so much for having me, Janet.
Awesome. Thank you too.